Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Lenny Wood. Lenny, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Aaron. Great to be here.
I have to say, I think you are the first international guest on the Keep Hustling podcast. So it is really an honor to have you. And I appreciate you joining me on this journey, joining our listeners all the way from across the pond.
Yeah, great. It's just it's great for me as well. And I'll always be the first forevermore.
That's forevermore. A title that cannot be taken from you.
Exactly.
So I'm an identical twin, and I tell people that I will always be the older of the twins.
I like it.
My only identifying factor is that I've been on this earth for 4 minutes longer than my twin brother, than my identical twin. So, so there you go. So, I want to get into some of the incredible things that you've done or that you've built in your career, but we always begin by asking our guests to take us back to their upbringing, to what inspired their hustle, to what inspired them to build the careers and lives that they've built today. So what do we need to know about the upbringing of Lenny Wood that brought you to where you are right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is on the job learning. So very much, like I went to school, high school, went to college. And then after that, didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't want to commit to university because I didn't feel that pull that a lot of people feel. Someone wants to be like, a doctor or a vet or something like that. They know, they kind of have their life laid out in front of them. But I didn't have that feeling. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did what a lot of people did in my age in, the mid-90s, which is start working in retail. So that was like kind of, do that, get a job, start building a personality and get my confidence and all of that kind of stuff.
Where was that?
So that was initially my very, very first job straight out of college was at a video game store, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But I've been a huge gamer since like about the age of 7, I think. And so when I got to sort of 17, and there was an opportunity to work for a video game store, obviously,
sure, why not?
Got to do it, right? So. And that was cool, and it was unusual because the shift rotation was strange. It was 4 days on, 3 days off, 12-hour shifts. But it's video games, so it's great. And the great thing, well, I'll tell you, I can time stamp myself now, which is the first day that I started. I didn't have an email. I had a memo inbox. An email came about a year later.
And what was the video game system of choice then?
So when I started working there, it was Saturn age. Yeah. So
wasn't that where the original Sonic the Hedgehog was? The original Sonic the Hedgehog on Saturn, or was it on something else?
No, that was Mega Drive. Was original.
Mega Drive, exactly. Okay.
Original was Mega Drive, but there was obviously Sonic versions on the Saturn. So that was the kind of era. PCs were no controllers. It was still Doom on a keyboard, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But the job was great because, it was customer facing. You probably dealt with multiple hundreds of people a day. And your primary job was to sell them games and equipment. So like there was a lot of play testing and you had to be very knowledgeable. And that was for me, that was a brilliant platform to starting a career, really. I didn't think it would ever end there, but it was, that was a great start, and that lasted for about 2 years. And then I moved to a bigger store. So I stayed in retail, and I moved to it's a hardware store known in the UK as Wilkinson's, and they've recently, unfortunately, gone bust, which is a real shame. But at the time they were flying,
it's great. It's great. You said, in your day, what did people do when they didn't have a career, when they didn't know what they wanted to do? They went into retail.
Yeah.
Today, they don't know what they want to do. They just play video games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They just stream.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And it's a shame and it is a shame. And I've seen so many people, including myself, because I was a really shy person at school, and I've seen people transformed by retail. When you're thrown in you're thrown in the deep end, and suddenly you have to learn all your social skills uh, really quickly and under pressure, then it sets you in good stead. And I think people who miss out on that are all the poorer for it, unfortunately.
100%. There is no replacement for experience, and I think that
Mm.
a lot of people naturally run from experience, right? Because it's scary. Run from that challenging experience. So being thrown into the deep end and having someone approach you in a store, in a retail store, is something that you can't really run from, because then you won't be employed. So,
That's right,
anyone
exactly.
could say they made a certain amount of cold calls or interacted with a certain amount of people at a networking event, but you can actually just, make circles and not actually speak to people, as opposed to being in that physical environment is an incredible way to gain that experience. And I want to jump to a portion of your experience, which I
Mm.
mentioned before we came on, which is insane to me in every awesome way. And that is, I encourage everyone to read your bio, which is in the show notes.
Hmm.
And it begins with that you have over 29,000 hours. I'll repeat that, over 29,000 hours of practical marketing experience. And I did the math myself.
Hmm.
That is more than 3 full years,
Hmm.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Hmm.
So that may not seem like a lot, but we were talking about how if you parlay that into work years, that's a lot more. But just to think about that, you have literally spent 3 years
Mm.
in every millisecond of your being in practical marketing experience. I have to, when you hear that number, what does that say to you in your hustle?
Well, I mean, I came up with it because there's there's the however many hours you need to spend to be proficient at something, and then be an expert at something, and I think it's 10,000 hours to be an expert in something. And then I thought, well, I've been in marketing in some fashion or another for like 17 years. And so I was like, well, calculate that into hours, and then how many more hours is that beyond an expert? And then that number just seemed to, it's a cool headline.
You're saying when you started your career, you didn't keep a ticker in your pocket and just go for it every single time you were working?
No, I thought about that about halfway through and thought I'd missed the boat. So, but yeah, I mean, when you put it, you put it the way you put it, which is over 3 years. If I was doing nothing else, including sleeping and eating and using the bathroom, then it's a crazy amount of time to be doing one thing.
And when you reflect on that, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest, because I think there is a lot of people who, as I say, when I started out in work, I didn't know what it wanted to be, and I think there's a lot of people who still don't know, even when they're mid-career and they're still moving around. And I'm just really pleased that I found something that I enjoyed and I was able to get relatively good at and stick with. And then what it served me well now, because as we'll get on to at some point, it saved me during a really difficult time, not just for me, but for everybody.
Well, let's jump to that.
Hmm.
My next question is, what has been your most challenging, difficult, or pivotal moment in your career? And I'd like to ask you about two moments. The one you were just referencing.
Yeah.
But before that, how did you get into marketing
Ah,
and
right.
make the
So
pivot from retail there? I assume that was a pivotal moment, but probably
yeah,
not the most
yeah.
difficult. And then what was the most difficult, and take us through that?
Yeah, so there's two pivotal moments. One is getting into marketing, the other one is COVID, obviously, which we'll touch on. But the getting into marketing part, now this is like, I don't call it luck, because I like to think that luck is preparedness meets opportunity. So some people might call this luck, but so I decided that so I worked for the large hardware company. I started as a night filler, 16 hours a week night filler, and I left as an assistant manager, store manager. But I got to the point where I didn't want to work weekends anymore for a corporation. And then I decided, well, the only way out of that is to get into the 9 to 5. not knowing, at all what to do. But back in the mid-90s, there was it would be the early 2000s, there was a lot of opportunity to work, short-term contract jobs. So what now you call the gig economy, I suppose. And so all I did was I took a year of taking any job, but with companies that were office-based. And so one job comes along, and this is the lucky part. It's a warehouse job, 2-week warehouse. So I'm like, I'll do it because I'm doing whatever comes along. And 2 weeks become 4 weeks, become 3 months. And whilst I was there, I got friendly with the graphic design department and the art director. And I said, if anyone ever leaves, give me a shout and then I'll interview for it. And that happened. Somebody left and I interviewed and I got the job. He took me under his wing, taught me everything he knew. And then I did about a year and a half of that. And then an opportunity came up in marketing within the same company. So I just switched across. That was the beginning. That was literally it. That was the beginning. So took some graphic design skills with me, took some management skills with me, learned the basics of marketing, stayed there for a little bit longer, and then thought, well, the next logical step is to find a job managing other people, and that was it. And then just moved on and just kept moving on from there. So you could call it luck, but I manufactured the luck.
Most luck is manufactured. I believe exactly. I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast, but it's one of the things that I believe. I know one billionaire, someone who's worth just south of $12 billion. Not bad. And I once asked him, I was in a car with him, and I once asked him how he made it, because I was just fascinated. You don't get to that level.
Yeah, of course.
And he looked me right in the face and he says, luck. And then he said, the luck part was, he's in the financial services business. He was in the investment field. Obviously, he had to be intelligent. Obviously, he had to put himself in the right position. Obviously, he had to put himself in the right room. But the comment that he made about luck was that he chose a company to invest in, and the guy in the cubicle next to him chose a company to invest in. And both of them were equally as smart, and both of them had equal amount of data and logic and theory and all that behind them. His panned out. The other guys didn't, let's say, right? And he doesn't remember, he doesn't know which moment that was or which company that was. But the luck was that his idea or his logical conclusion that day worked out better than the next guy. But in order to have that luck, you have to be in a position where that luck, two things, that luck will come your way. And when that luck comes your way, not to bring you a sport that you probably are not a fan of or know much about, but when the pitch comes your way, you got to hit it with the bat.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to be in the ballpark at the plate where the pitch comes your way, and then you got to hit it.
Yeah.
Those parts are not lucky.
I'm more of an NFL guy, but I'll go with the baseball analogy.
Really? American football?
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Dolphins fan.
Well, I'm a Jet fan, so my life is miserable.
Oh, nice. Okay.
My life is miserable. Dolphins. Just same division, slightly less miserable than you, but my life is still a miserable existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know what? I think it's fine to say that it's luck, but I also think that as part of your hustle, one has to acknowledge that some of that luck, a lot of that luck is manufactured or being opportunistic or taking that when it comes your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned, I want to get to the difficult moment.
Yeah, so the difficult moment is the COVID moment. Difficult for everyone, of course. But, I was working, when it happened, I was working for a Swiss email security company. And a Swiss head office, they had 50 offices around the world. UK was one of them. They did what most corporations did, which was, someone's going to pay our staff's wages. So they furloughed as many people as they could. And so that was, again, the opportunity meets preparedness moment again, which is that I'd spent probably about 4 or 5 years before that moment really interested in running my own business and in business people and, watching a lot of videos, taking a lot of courses, reading a lot of books. And then along comes this opportunity where somebody says, we're going to pay you to stay at home. And I was like, well, okay, fair enough. And then two things happened. My boss had a conversation with me and said, this is crazy because I've got to furlough everyone, but the company still want me to run the company with 2 people or whatever. So that was the first light bulb moment. And I thought, well, there must be loads of people in that boat. And there was. Great. So there was a market created immediately. And then I contacted all of my recruitment contacts on LinkedIn to see, what's the likelihood of getting a job anytime soon. And sort of, I'd say 9 out of 10 of them were furloughed. And then the ones that weren't furloughed were basically saying, this is unprecedented. We don't know. Come back to us in a year. Just don't know. So then that was more than enough motivation to just start a business. So literally, went to bed on the Friday, got up on the Monday morning, and I'm like, right, okay, let's dip into my LinkedIn contacts and then start pitching this idea that you're in a hole, I can get you out of it, and it worked.
I have to believe that there's real hustle there, meaning so many people at that moment were down. And one of the things that I'm learning through this is that it's okay to be down. It's okay to have the moments of challenge, but the most successful people, those people who can put 29,000 lifetime hours and still counting, by the way, into something, it's because they are able to take what do they say, that more money is made during times of crisis than it is during times of
course,
peace,
or
times of calm.
See the opportunities,
but it's about seizing those opportunities. And so then you started your own company.
Yeah, just as simple as that. As not simple, but as quickly as that. Friday evening, furloughed. Monday morning, start a business.
Well, at least you took Sunday off.
Yeah, I had the weekend. I always do. But yeah, and it was obviously not easy, and obviously it took a while to get going. But the absolute sort of home run, to use the same analogy, was that I was being paid. So all that time I was building and nothing was happening, but I was building, and then finally got to where I wanted to be. Someone was paying me a salary, and then when the voluntary redundancies came around, someone paid me even more money to go away. By which time the business was already up and running, so it was just like a win-win, really.
I marvel the people who are able to see the opportunity and seize it so incredibly, because that's what it's about, right? It's not about if it was easy, everyone would do it. If the times were easy, everyone would do it. One of my favorite quotes that I think I mentioned on the podcast before, but it rings true, is that hard times make strong people. Mm-hmm. Strong people make easy times or good times. Yep. Good times make weak people.
Yep.
And weak people make hard times or difficult times. And so I hope that wasn't the quote you were going to give us at the end, because it was
no. This is, but I'm with
that
you on
quote. And the people who don't seize the opportunity in the hard times are not the hustlers. And this podcast is about keep hustling and hustling through those difficult times. And look, I imagine now you're happy being a business owner than any time that you were an employee through that part of your career.
Yeah, much happier now. Yeah, much happier now, because I think it's because I've got a particular mindset, and that mindset I think was more geared to being independent and making my own decisions and living or dying by my own, by my own opinion and what I do. Whereas when you're an employee, you can have your ideas and you can suggest things and you can campaign for things, but unless you own the company, there'll always be somebody else in the company that's either senior to you or will have their own ideas, and that can be really frustrating for someone with my mindset who just wants to come up with the good idea, test it, if it works, do more of it, and just go with the flow, basically.
How many years did you work in the other companies before you started your own business?
So let me think. So 2005 to 2020.
So 15 years.
15 years, yeah.
What is it like going from employee to business owner in 5 minutes after being an employee for 15 years?
Well, I tell you what, it would have been really scary, I think, right? Say COVID never happened, and I just one day woke up and went, you know what? I'm fed up with this. I'm going to start a business. I would have started on that Monday morning with no salary, no income, starting at zero, no safety net, it would have been terrifying. For me, because of the way it happened, the terrifying part was being furloughed, because
Right.
never experienced that before, and
People didn't even know what the term was. Quarantine and furlough. Nobody knew what those things meant.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what. I'll be honest, I didn't know what furlough meant either. And then when it happened, I was like, well, my gut, and I go with my gut a lot. I'm more of a gut than a head person, and my gut was like, this could be really bad. Just that. This could be really bad. It seems really good right now because someone said go home, we'll pay you, but it really quick could be really bad. And so that was enough of a driving force to like make me make other arrangements.
And again, that's the hustle. The hustle is not just saying this could be really bad, but believing it enough and believing in yourself enough that you were able to pivot that and become a successful business owner. Do you have any regrets?
No, none. Zero. Yeah. Even now, I'm very honest about this at the moment, because I see so many people struggling around me that starting a business in COVID meant that I started in a dip, and then I worked my way out of a dip, and then it was really great for about a year and a half. And then I don't know whether this is global or whether this is UK localized, but certainly in my market, a UK market, there is a stagnation happening. So, I think today or maybe yesterday, they announced that it was an official recession and everything has plateaued. Nothing's happening. We're having to work twice as hard to stand still, that kind of situation. Almost like it was when I first started.
So isn't it amazing when you can say you've been there before? Like, we've weathered this storm.
This is great. Yeah. I mean, and I genuinely understand the benefit now of living through these experiences. And one of my first clients, they've been around since the 80s, so like 40 something years. And they said, they've lived through multiple recessions to the point where their company actually can predict them coming and then make the changes required like 9 months before they hit. I can't wait to be in that position.
Love that.
Where I can look at my crystal ball and say, in about 9 months, it's going to be a bit tricky.
Well, you know what? We can't wait to watch that hustle. And, your hustle is inspirational.
But yeah, so now I'm living through the second, we'll call it a downturn, a slowing up of the economy, whatever it is. But I'm much better prepared already. This is only the second time, but I've already.
There's waves. There's always ups and downs. I think that what is it that some of that experiences validation. You don't get. I think it's Alex Hormozy who says, one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite influencers. Says that you don't gain experience or achieve success by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but you gain them from rep and over and over and over again of success and failure.
Yeah,
pivoting through that and hustling through that. So I love that.
Yeah,
Lenny,
it's one of my favorite Gary Vaynerchuk quotes. Is fail faster.
Yeah,
it's the quicker you can get through that part, the quicker you'll reach the correct conclusion and move forward.
And as long as you commit to yourself to keep hustling through that and moving forward and not giving up on that, that's
another interesting commentary on being an employee versus a business owner, which is when you're an employee, it's frowned upon to make mistakes. So
an entrepreneur, it's part of the hustle.
Encouraged. Yeah,
love that.
Exactly.
I love that. Wow, Lenny, thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for the story. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the 29,000 hours of giving back to those of us in the business community and the marketing side. Again, more than 3 years. We ask all of our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote and what it means to them. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this came about because from when I first started my business to now, I've changed the model. So the model was originally, I had saleable skills. So I used the saleable skills. I sold them. I provided skills. I carried out all of the work and I took all of the money. That was the original model. Then very quickly, I realized that that's not scalable. It's, you can only get to you've only got a certain number of hours in a day, week, month, year. And so,
unlike you, I need to eat and sleep.
Correct. That's right. Yeah, of course. So my thought process was, how do I scale being a solopreneur? And the answer came through committing to networking. So I committed early doors. I committed really hard into networking, social media, etc. And I built up a really great, solid network of people. And I realized that within this network of people were people who could do what I was delivering, only they were doing it 29,000 hours each, and they were better at it than I was. Because my 29,000 hours was spread amongst multiple disciplines. Theirs is all in one street. So I'm like, so then if I bring them on board and I use them to deliver the work, and I take a small commission from each job that I find, then I can scale the business. And I was thinking about this for a while, and then I heard this quote from John D. Rockefeller, which is, I would rather earn 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own. And
Love
I was
that.
just like, that's it. That's the final piece of the puzzle. So
that's one angle. That's one angle part and vital step in the hustle.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that kind of changed the whole business entirely.
Amazing. Love that. Lenny, thank you for being here.
Thanks very much, Aaron.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good, and of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.